People, so we're to do it. So sometimes they turn away, and if they do, when they come in, but we are definitely on it. Mr. Mike Neely here. The state legislation has give the chapter support. And then we're going to focus on two items on that list. One being the waiver of retirement waiver that's coming up, and then we'll reduce. And the second one is the electric vehicle they're facing, and the assistance that we will be looking for with the decision. So with that, Mr. Christopher and Assemblyman John McDonald is spoken. Thank you for coming. And I always appreciate you.
There you go. I'd like to just share with you the lineup of our legislative agenda, and I would hope that most of the audience has seen that out since September. And what I want to do today is just go through 4 important points that we're really focusing on this year, as opposed to going through the entire agenda because it's quite a lengthy. The agenda is put together by a committee of 9 members from all across the state, and it kind of reflects not only our legislative role, but some things will get done, some things will not get done, and it certainly provides us legislative action every year, legislative ideas and bills. So that's the purpose of that. Focus on 3 major points I think will be of interest this year. And the first of which is the left shoulder belt piece. As most of you know, in the industry anyway, there was a recent NTSB report that responded to an accident that occurred in Tennessee a couple years ago. And basically, NTSB is calling for left shoulder belts on school buses again all across the nation. Specifically, they spoke to New York State and said, New York, you need to take a look at your statutes and amend those statutes to call for left shoulder belts. So legislators, you may be hearing about that. It's something that, New York has been advised of by NTSB. And it's something that, we received some calls on already, for our response, back in 2019. And I have, put on a, document that basically supported the installation of that shoulder mount. Reasonable implementation conditions in that document on the website. We would provide, legislative information if, needed. This association, people in industry have always been the safest option for kids, and the recent, a couple, 3 years now, some concern flat belts. Well, shoulder belts are something that we need to be aware of, and maybe something we'll be addressing this year. The next item I want to talk about in the agenda, and again, a focus item on our work this year, is concerning bus driver shortages. Probably of all the things in the agenda, this front of most here is the most important thing. Without, a full complement of school bus drivers in our school districts and our non, we're very concerned about the safety impact of that. We've got people here who probably, I'm surprised to see how many people here, because the most chapter meeting I go to, everybody's driving a bus that can, and that's not good. Full-time staff mechanics, etc. So we're really pursuing some things that, hopefully, from a legislative standpoint, can assist school transportation operations with their school bus staffing. One of which is a support for retiree waiver, which was approved last year, which we were aware of. We spoke about this last year. It's something that will expire in June 23. It essentially allows retirees, state retirees, police, fire, prison employees to drive a school bus in their retirement and earn over $35,000 a year, which is the limit that retirees can make if you're a public employee retiree. So again, that's going to expire in June 23, and we're asking for that to be extended 60 months. We don't really see this school bus driver shortage issue going away. School bus drivers who are retired are not making killing driving a school bus, but it's a nice part of the job where they can supplement the income and provide a good service to school districts. We recently did a survey of all our members, and we had over 100 school districts reply and say, we've got retirees working for us, and they're impacted by this waiver if it expires in June of 2023. So we're hopeful that we can get a sponsor to take a look at that. We've talked to some labor unions about this. I know that was a concern in the past. The labor unions may have a problem with this. We talked to one of the largest labor unions, and they have no issues with it being extended. So that's something that I think is a positive. It does not put people out of work. If we had full complements of school bus drivers, this wouldn't even be discussed. But the school bus driver situation, I would say, is a little better than it was. It's not perfect. And there's so many things that state hurdles that school districts and people need to overcome to become a school bus driver that we need to do everything we can to try to deal with this situation. So we're hopeful that will be something that will extend out. The other thing that we're suggesting is a tax credit for people who become school bus drivers, much like teachers and firemen and other groups. This helps them. A tax credit to help people become school bus drivers, offset some of the expense that they incur in the training process. And granted, many schools do pay drivers to train and do cover a lot of expenses, but there's an opportunity to paying for gas at $3 a gallon. You're buying things on your own that may prohibit you from wanting to get into that business. So if we could take a look at that as well, we think that would be helpful. And again, anything that we can do to try to encourage people to become school bus drivers, we certainly support. Most importantly, probably is a waiver issue. If we can get that done, that would be a big deal. So, hopefully, support on that. So last but not least, I want to talk about electric buses. I think that's probably the hot topic on everyone's mind. And I will have a presentation for a little later on electric buses as well. I've been all over the state of New York talking about this, and you know, just like this, listening to the folks and putting on panels and moderating panels, and you know, it's a big topic all across the state. And quite honestly, there's a lot of concern among the people in this room, I'm sure, you know, in this business. This transition, if not done correctly, will really, I don't want to use the word destroy, but it's really going to negatively impact the school transportation business. We're concerned that this is not done correctly, that we're planning, that school districts will be forced to make decisions. Do we want to buy electric buses, or do we want to fix our classrooms, pay our teachers? And the result of that would be reevaluation of transportation policies and maybe putting kids on buses. And when we first raised that issue last year, that concern, we were told, no, this isn't going to happen. Well, it's already happening, folks, in the industry. Case in point is Amsterdam schools. School bus drivers and kids on daycare are no longer. So I think it's a far stretch to say when you're having to purchase a bus that costs 3 times a fossil fuel diesel bus comes. That some decisions are going to have to be made. So before I get into some of these projects, I want to just, you know, I think everybody in this room agrees that there's some value to electric tuition buses on the road. If nothing else, the tailpipe is cleaner, and kids are not going to be breathing in. So that's a positive. And I think that you know, there's things that we're learning. We've got a pioneer right here in the room who's got something that is fleet. Corinne over Bethlehem, and I've talked to other districts who've got some AVs and things like, you know, certainly quieter vehicle for kids to ride as a positive. School bus drivers seem to benefit from the quiet ride because they can deal with kids better, and they can, you know, they don't have to listen to the diesel bus, and that's all good stuff. So there is support, and this industry is always supported. You know, cleaner vehicles. You know, way back in the 80s when we had buses built in place, we adopted, you know, cleaner buses and technology. And I think that, you know, New York had one of the largest rebate awards from the EPA. School districts that applied for rebate money from the EPA. 92 school districts on a wish list to get more money. It shows that there's interest. The issue is quite honestly, there's some hurdles to overcome, and the number one hurdle is that you know, the cost of replacing our school buses is significant. We're hearing an EV on the state contract that is not yet public. It is 3 to 3.5 times what diesel bus costs. Approaching $450,000. That's a lot of money, and it's a huge increase in one year, right? So this is the problem. I don't think we're too far off here. That it's going to cost about $2.3 billion a year to do this, and that's with the cost of purchasing the buses and the infrastructure, which is what they're going to know. We don't know what infrastructure costs are going to be because everybody's different. Everybody's garage, depot, or whatever you want to call it, it's different. And you know, the cost of this is significant. And again, we're very concerned that, you know, will impact negatively on the industry going forward. And yes, the grant programs are great, and we're certainly glad to see that you know, the school districts take advantage of those, that they're getting, you know, some money in to implement some, get their toe in the water, or implement some vehicles on the road. But there's not enough money. We're calculating about 800 million in grant programs. And again, that's a lot of money. You know, from my perspective, but it's not money that needs to be done by 2035. We've got to replace about 4,700 now in that deadline to get this done. And it's really not going to happen. You can't produce that many. You can't get the infrastructure up and running in time. And it certainly is in our estimation, not realistic. And, you know, the supply chain issues that we're dealing with are delaying, you know, deliveries, not the fault of the manufacturers and dealers. We get supplies post-pandemic, and we're told it's probably going to be a couple of years before that really settles down. So that, along with the capacity of the power grid, is you know, another reason we feel that this really needs to be thought through a little better. Again, we're supportive of this transition, but it needs to be done thoughtfully and with a plan. We have examples all across the state of school bus garages that are coming up this transition. Older garages that will need to be completely rebuilt. If you go down to the Long Island, New York City, you know, they literally have hundreds of buses in these small lots with no room for any electric charging system. And it's something that is concern across the state. I was just out in the Rochester area, the schools, one of the largest school districts in the state, with over 260 buses. They just built a multi-million-dollar operations center, probably the nicest transportation operation center in the state of New York. Not all place. They have the capacity to charge. They have no capacity to add charging stations. There's no space. They're parking, you know, 260 buses and probably 500 staff members every day. So to be able to make that happen is a significant cost above and beyond the power line coming in the door. So again, you know, the power grid, the transition issue all has to be looked at. Some recommendations, some things that we think maybe certainly funding has to come from somewhere to offset this. I know that we're told state aid will follow if you buy an EV bus. The state aid will be paid on that cost according to whatever your local share is. Unfortunately, state aid rule on the purchase of the bus has changed. We paid back over 200 years. We thought last year when we heard of that was a mistake. I'm not so sure that's the case. That certainly spreads out the cost of the state over many years versus the 5-year reimbursement that's for many years. We think that needs to be looked at. That's a disincentive to purchase an electric vehicle. That's not going to move the decision forward. Paying that school district over 12 years versus 5 years. We would think that that can be adjusted. We believe that creates an inequity between the private and the public sector in that a private sector operation is aided on their cost in the next year. Whereas a school district now will be state aid over a 12-year for a very significant cost. So that has to be really looked at to get, you know, to incentivize school districts to buy electric vehicles. Even though the state will pay over 12 years, we will pay state aid. There's a significant amount going to be incurred by local school districts. And we're not sure how that's going to play out. New York, unlike other states, many other states, local taxpayers have a say over when they buy school buses. We're not sure what's going to happen here when these propositions come out with significant money attached. If they say no, we do. And the folks that are gonna have to deal with that, are sitting in this room because they're going to be dealing with old buses while this all gets worked out. School districts, for the most part, have very, detailed, efficient plans in terms of bus replacement. And, and the list is not with upfront, we're very proud of. And in my travels around the state, I'm hearing that, there's some pushback to this. We're saying, look, I don't want to pay this kind of money, we can't afford it, so it really has to be considered. I think, state aid incentives could be done. Years ago, if you remember, you paid 90% state aid and every expense in the school transportation. Maybe a 90% state aid reimbursement for an EV bus to be just throwing it out there to see what sticks. But something has to be done to assist localities because you really think that they're not going to buy into this when the propositions start hitting propositions will be 4 times what they were in the past, roughly. We understand there's some proposals kicking around to pay state electrification engineering studies. We're something behind that. We suggested last year that we focus on engineering studies first and figure out what the infrastructure engineering is before we money. Manufacturers figured out the electric bus for the most part, and we can get electric buses on site really quickly. But infrastructure is a big deal. Easy, cheap. The bus purchase cost and the tax calculation, that's problematic, obviously. And last but not least, I think as we go forward, we've got to consider the delay in these implementations. I know that the first couple is 4 years away, but in order to meet the 35 deadline, you need to be buying electric buses today. There's an example in this room of a school district that is ahead of all, ahead of all school districts in terms of their EV purchases, and they still can't meet the 35 deadline with their funding plan. So it's something to think about. Has to be looked at, and we prefer that this be done in a planned way going forward versus at the last minute. Here was 27. Okay, now we got to go and buy, tons of buses to meet this 35 deadline. It's just not possible. Just want to close by saying the EV issue. It's clear with this. The industry's always been supportive of being clean buses on the road, always done. Years ago, I did a white Yankee fence. When we did that. YouTube, then President Bush. Well, I'm just supportive of that. We're supportive of people will be these, but it has to be done differently. They can't just manage. I'm not sure it's realistic. And we're working with NYSERDA. We've got some people on the NYSERDA to talk this through. We'll work with anyone to try to move the support for school districts that don't want to get involved in it, but that has to be done differently than what mandate proposes. So I offer any questions, any thoughts, concerns, certainly we can talk about this or any other item on the agenda. I want to just focus on EVs if there's other items you'd like to talk about. But those 3 are really the ones that we think we're going to be focusing on this year. Any thoughts, questions? Well, that was easy. Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
I just want to quickly before Karen comes back to that a little bit more referring to that David already talked about, giving us some numbers, what it actually, some realistic numbers of what it might look like for districts. I do want to introduce Ali Shazad from Assembly Phase virtually. Thank you for coming. Also, NHTC Region 1 Director utilizes with us virtually as well. Thank you both for being able to attend.
Well, good morning. I don't know if I can do a better job today. Yeah. So, they laid out the electric vehicle challenges, they much better than I did. Scroll through, there's about 6-7 slides, and just share it with you from the perspective of transportation director, from an operational perspective. My name is Al Carroll. I am the Shenandoah School District Transportation Director. And I want to first say thank you to our elected representatives for being here. And I also want to say that you are really part of helping us maintain a safe and efficient environment in the school transportation industry for our students. The slides are about school electrification as mandated by the state. Short presentations will focus on costs and challenges. And the intent of this presentation is really to seek the help of our elected officials to get us to that 2035 hard deadline. And as they alluded to, we're already behind the 8 ball. We should, like this year, Sam should have bought 19 electric buses, and obviously we didn't do that. So we can meet that 2035 deadline. And I can assure you, as Dave also stated, none of us here are anti-zero emission anything. We have always embraced technology, which help us meet our mission of keeping our students safe, and again, providing for that efficient transportation service. Next. Well, having a clean environment is an noble goal that we all should be striving for. Today's internal combustion engine powered school buses are actually 96% cleaner than they were a decade ago. And really, right? I hear people stand up in public and say kids are being hurt, dying, or catching asthma or whatever from being on the school bus today. That's a fallacy. The studies that they refer to were done way back when, and they used buses from the 80s to conduct that analysis. The buses today are a whole lot cleaner, and that's already been proven by the white package. So we know that technology is ever changing, and as school transportation professionals, we welcome technological advancements. But we also must be methodical in improving transportation technology, especially when the technology is not ready for prime time and it is excessively expensive. Electric powered buses have pros and cons. We need to understand from an operational perspective what those pros and cons are and how to deal with it. Everyone is focused right now on let's just purchase them. Let's just purchase these buses without really looking long term. The way we approach our operation, we're not looking at it today or tomorrow. We're actually looking at it, how's it going to look 8 years from now, 10 years from now, 12 years from now. There are studies done in the United States, China, and elsewhere that speak to operations having to modify their electric buses. For example, Duluth, Minnesota, they have to strap on what we call Vesto heaters, so that those buses are electric, those transit buses have to use the internal heaters that were based on the battery power, so they can conserve power, because they found out when they used those heaters in Duluth, Minnesota, they weren't able to do the mission that those buses were designed to do. Next, they put so here it runs off of fossil fuel. Once you strap on any fossil fuel anything on an electric bus, it is no longer zero emission. Same thing happened in China. They have to do the same thing. In China, China has the largest electric bus fleet in the world, 400,000 electric buses. And what they have learned is for every bus, diesel type for gas that was able to do, for example, 1 year, it requires 2 electric buses to do so. That's a lot of money, a lot of expense. And in Duluth, Minnesota, by the way, in order to help them meet their winter obligations to transport their community, they have to bring back and keep in the fleet in terms of bus emissions. What we know, so we will have to start buying electric buses. Why? Because they're the only zero emission buses available today. Our hope, at least for me and maybe some others, is that hydrogen becomes available soon as well. So if you ask bus manufacturers, can they turn a fleet of over 45,000 buses in the state of New York to electric buses in 12 years? They will tell you 12 years is not long enough. There is not enough capacity, manufacturing capacity to do so. And they've alluded to that. They need to do like 4,500 a year. And I think John Leonard, I think the capacity is about 1,000 buses right now. So there's no way that we're going to be able to meet that hard 2035 deadline. Most of our compounds will require projects to prepare them for electric buses and prepare for the chargers. At minimum, maybe 2 years will start to finish to prepare those compounds. What do we need to prepare? For example, in our operation, to prepare that compound, we would have to tear up the old conduits all across that compound, put in bigger conduits because these chargers require heavier electric wires, right? Not the 110, the 240 or 250, 250 volts. So you have to have the whole compound, new conduits, new wires, and not just for electricity, by the way, but also for internet connectivity, because these chargers, if you're smart, you would buy chargers that are internet capable, so you can monitor, and I'll explain later why, your fleet. And they've already alluded to this as well. There are huge obstacles for operators who don't have the parking capacity, let alone the capacity to put chargers for those buses. And that's where us public contractors as well. Indoor parking. Now, my colleagues are going to I've been in that garage. I don't know where they're going to put those chargers. Very tight. So indoor parking leaves little or no space for chargers. Again, so we're going to stay in about 12 years. The state saying that electric buses will be amortized for 12 years. It will be an impact on school district budgets, given the extreme high cost of electric buses and their charging infrastructure. To recoup that state aid over this length of time, while the yearly bus replacement plan is at an astronomical level. This will affect revenue streams that districts currently rely on. So if we spread the cost, for example, of a small type A bus for 12 years and the bus falters and has to be replaced early, say between 7 to 9 years, which is what is most districts do today for small buses. They're on a 7 to 9 year replacement plan. We would be paying on a vehicle that no longer exists in our inventory, or we can turn around and extend the life of that school bus, but that too will be costly. And I don't know who's going to maintain a type A bus for 12, 13, 14, 15 years, especially if it's electric. At any rate, to help us achieve the state goal of 2035, our members really encourage the state to fully fund the incremental cost of electric buses, and then that reimbursement be paid the following year, not 12 years, because we're asking the taxpayers to pay almost 4 times as much as they currently are. And if you want the taxpayers to vote yes, we have to, look, we ought to get this money the following year, right? In order for them to vote yes. We have all experienced bus proposition failures. It's not a pretty thing, especially when we have to extend the life of older buses. There's a lot of cost on that end of the equation. Here's another concern. This is an operational concern we have. At what point can we make an electric bus spare? Currently, under the current regulations, we can do that in the 6th year. Why? Because the first 5 years we're getting aid on that bus. By law, that bus has to be on the road 100% of the time. We can't make it into a spare. So how's that going to work if we're getting aid on a bus for 12 years? Are they gonna change the law that allows to make it fair when we feel like it? Or does it have to stay on the roof for 12 years? So what does that mean down the road when we do that? We gotta keep it on a roof for 12 years. Think about the spare fleet then. How old is the spare fleet gonna be? 13, 14, 15, 16 years? Are we gonna be like Texas running 30-year-old buses? What they just said back. So. So this slide doesn't address the infrastructure costs from the bus compound upgrades, the electric service upgrades, and or the initial charging system installation. Because this they have this kind of money, this slide only talks about the 45,000 plus buses we have, what it's going to cost to replace them at the current price. About 430 and 4. I know we put in order for 4 buses, 462,000. Why is that? Because we have the highest battery capacity that's available. Why is that? Because I'm looking 10 years down the road, and I want that bus battery to at least give me what the cheapest electric bus gives me brand new right now. Okay. So we have to think ahead. We have to, 8 years down the road and not cheap out if we're forced into buying electric buses. Again, I say, does the state have this kind of money for school buses? That's one. We already talked about the manufacturers, what they can put out. So if they can only put out 1,000 electric buses per year, that's going to leave us 38,000 buses stored by 2035. Again, that 2035 deadline, I mean, what's so magical about it? What's the data behind it? How the heck did we come up with that? That it just drives me bonkers when I look at that. Somebody said, no, the capacity is not there. The electrical capacity is not there. Manufacturing capacity is not there. Look around you, the world is broken when it comes to the supply chain. And honestly, that's not going to get any better, especially if we get in a short war with China. So if you know anything about geopolitics, it's around the corner. It's going to happen. So this graph is what it looks like for Shen. This is what we usually spend, around about 2.3 million dollars per year on about 2022 buses, right? The green is what we would have to spend to meet that 2035 deadline, anywhere between 7.8 to 8.7 million dollars just for buses. That's about 100 million between now and 2035. Just for Shen. By the way, it's a fallacy when people stand up and say there's grant money. There is no grant money for school districts like Shen. Why? We're too poor to be rich, or we're too rich to be poor. We will not get grant money. We're not a city. We're not a tribal. That's what the Shen taxpayers got to come up with. We're now to 2035. From a taxpayer, the vote is no. So whether we buy, and I'm talking Shen here, whether we buy electric buses over a 12, 10, 6, or 5-year period, the cost is $100 million. We have a fleet of 250 buses, by the way. So to put it in perspective, at 60% state aid for Shen, that equates to 3.75% of the yearly state aid budget for transportation, just for Shen. The cost doesn't include infrastructure, construction, and upgrades, and the chargers themselves. By the way, just got a quote for 2 chargers that will service those 4 buses at $73,000 each. For installation. For installation. Thank you, Jim. Before installation. Now. And as each year ticks by the way, the chargers, we just think of the computer, the metal box sitting outside of the elements. And we already know that there's a life cycle of these chargers. Some people will tell you 5 years, some people are 10 years, I'll go in between, I'll say 8 years. Those $73,000 charges, right? When they have to be replaced, when they hit their life cycle. Whatever that is, 75. Matter of fact, the warranties for chargers are for 5 years. If you ever read on warranties, why manufacturers give you 5 years or 3 years and 36,000 miles on your car, because they know things are going to happen after that. Cover it. Okay? So there's going to be a lot of costs, which, by the way, nobody is putting that cost as part of the total cost of ownership. The charger should be part of the total cost of ownership. You put that in that TCO for an electric bus, I guarantee you, you will see the cost of that bus skyrocket versus the combustion engine, such as diesel and gas. So everybody's trying to say these buses don't need oil changes, don't need filters, great, fine. But there's other costs associated with ongoing costs, forever and ever. I think the state financial resources will be better served if the state would just adopt a better option to convert buses, maybe like in the 5 boroughs, in the big cities in upstate New York, western New York, where the CO2 concentration is much higher and a bigger part of the disadvantaged, where the disadvantaged community reside. The school district should be left alone to adopt zero emission buses as a percentage of the fleet until such time when it's economically sensible to convert the entire fleet. I think the state's monies, taxpayer monies, will be better served if that's how the issue is attacked. Go to the next one, please. So the fleet conversion cost is for new equipment. It doesn't take into account future equipment swaps as chargers and buses age out. The study was done for a school district in New York State that showed the total cost of ownership for an electric bus would drop to $1,500 per bus after 28 years. Now, who in their right mind in upstate New York would keep a school bus for 28 years to realize PCM? But that's how it's being sold, right? In years, you'll go through more electric motors that are very costly, and you'll never see that 1,500. We already talked about the bus proposition rejection. That is real. That is a reality in our profession. And more often than not, we end up purchasing less buses or no buses once the vote goes down to replace older buses, which causes the fleet to age over time, which has negative effects on school transportation budgets, vis-a-vis bus maintenance and repairs, and vehicle uptime. Voter rejection must be part of the calculus with respect to the 2035 mandate. What happens if the voters reject the proposition once, twice, 3 times in the next 2 years, especially for districts that must put the entire bill such as Shin without any help from the so-called available grant monies? What will it mean with respect to the 2035 mandate? Are we all going to jail? I don't know. So the prior 8 slides really scratch the surface only. We're very concerned that we will not be able to meet the state mandate of 2035. We could spend many more hours talking about a lot of these challenges that really no one else is talking about from an operational budgetary perspective. We ask for your help, our elected officials, to either slow down the conversion by removing the artificial date of 2035 as that certain date, or fully funding the fleet conversion to include the infrastructure upgrades the year following such bus purchase. And if you really want to dive even more, come back next month to our chat meeting, because I got a 26 slide presentation that actually delves more into routing and dispatching and all those kinds of issues. And with that, thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm very helpful. I am so happy to represent Sarasota County Pollution and very helpful. Oh, yeah. Oh. So I have a lot of questions. I mean, I've been speaking more against for a long time, but I just wrote as fast as I could. I want to get that slide that you did, this is on Shed, and I will mention. But, question, so do we know what the useful life is going to be of an EV bus? What's the idea of that? You mentioned, what, 70 something years for a small bus, but that's not for EV, that's for a regular bus.
Right, but I really believe the life cycle of the convertible bus or electric is not going to change.
Okay.
Really not going to change, right? So for small buses, some of them we replace them, can replace it this time. For the larger buses, our replacement plan calls for, once the bus is 12 years, we replace it.
Okay.
So by the 13th year, it's gone. That's not going to change. Why? Because we live in the Northeast, right? There's a lot of salts and chemicals on the road that actually impact the body and the electronics more than anything else. And now we're introducing an electric motor that's going to be impacted even more because of the environment. So I don't see the life cycle.
Okay.
There is a life cycle on the chart based on the studies we did. There is a life cycle, not necessarily life cycle, but degradation of the battery. Studies that say it's high 3.5% on the electric batteries. And those batteries are very expensive. You know, if you want to buy a new battery at $50,000 today's dollars, right? For an electric bus or an electric bus, and you're talking about get rid of that ones. But I think the life cycle and the replacement plan is going to remain the same. How it is. Well,
No, I agree. You hit it right on the head. It's, the bus. So we either need to, change that bus line, many more years and pay more costs. Or you have to step in and continue on the cycle that many parts of the state, they are 5-year plans. Or 7-year plans, because they just can't, keep them down, that 7-8 years when you're doing a lot of extra work. I'm showing that, fix the bus in 7-8 years. Many schools don't have it.
Well, that was my next question, it's about, so, we're friends with one of the bus mechanics in my local school district. Do we have enough people that know how to maintain them where we get them? It was the training like that, what was the training like, and, because he's like, throwing up his hands saying, like, we don't have anybody that knows how to even maintain these.
that's actually my next presentation.
Oh, okay.
The same issues. Different issues. So, first of all, suggestions. They sound reasonable, however, like anything else, as education, it's been you're across the full spectrum. We gotta figure it. We will be following up with as well. Appreciate you always been a very straight shooter. Wow, that's you guys got to talk. Thank you.
Thank you. And he said to upward, the 6 majority, so he's out of events, people understand the city, which is one of the problems, and money, I think their kids love school anyway. So, one question is, you talked about being, school budget buster and having school budgets rejected. Is the bus portion of a budget, does that still become, does the school have still become within the school budget cap? Or is it? So I don't know, well, we argued on the floor, in my role of at the assembly right now is I'm the assistant board leader, so when bills come to the floor, I'm one of a couple of people that take a crack at debating the bills to start out with, so I just made about 6 pages of talking points in the case that this cuts their scheduled into budget for this April. But, what I've been kind of arguing all along, which I just think is common sense, is if you have a fleet and it's a mixed fleet and you're trying to gradually transition to some electric buses or dip your toe in the water and see how it works out, like Bethlehem is doing. You know, why don't we focus on a net reduction in emissions rather than, because I'm concerned, you're talking about like, if you put a heater on an electric bus, then it's not zero emission anymore. So are EV buses, are any of them equipped with heaters now? Or, because we live in the Northeast, we've got.
They have their own heaters, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And
It drains them.
in wintertime, you know, they bring up to 50% of,
I know exactly.
and so they won't be able to meet their assigned mission. That's part of the problem. That's what they face in China. That's what they face in Duluth, Minnesota. At least based on a few studies I've read. They have challenges. The other big piece that I didn't get to, but I will in my next presentation. A study was done in San Francisco. This group asked the chargers manufacturer, what is your uptime on the chargers? And anyone given it, they said 96% uptime. That's okay, that's good. We can live with that. That same group hired a private company to do an analysis, and they found in the city of San Francisco, on any one given day, only 75% of the chargers were up. Now, for us at Shem, I don't know about anybody else, if we were 100% fully electric, right, that 25% of the chargers being done, that equates to 57 plus anything. There's no way that the school can run. I mean,
Okay, what is that? We're gonna talk about everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a huge problem. I mean, as recently as like yesterday, when we were in session, there's a bill that's kind of coming through the system that talks about, buying American and how there's going to be a requirement now, once the bill passes, there'll be a requirement that, as the state fleet transitions to electric, that they're going to be buying American. And the question was, buying from whom? I mean, you know, where are these being supplied in the US? You know, how can we even get them? Can we meet the demand? You know, your point about supply chain is true, but where are electric buses being manufactured right now? And are any of those people in the room right now?
Yeah, bus dealer, and
Okay.
most school buses, only all the school buses, they're manufactured in the US.
Okay.
And I think by American, you go to assembly, but you're gonna have components, even in things that we come in, that come from outside of the country.
Well, they have to, because some of the you know, the rare earth materials that go into the batteries are coming from China and Africa and, you know, other places, and we can all have a big conversation about how clean is that, you know, energy when you're exploiting child labor. We're not going to go there right now, but you know, that was a conversation. And one of my colleagues, who's an energy Sano from Florida, he loves to make that point, and he will make that point for a lot of the season. But listen, I mean, thank you for what you do. I'm here to learn and listen, but it's in some ways I'm preaching to the choir. I mean, I understand what you're going through, and I'm sorry, because it's very difficult to get this point across to some of my colleagues across the aisle. And you know, these are aspirational goals that have been turned into mandates that are really putting just so much pressure on you, and it's going to put wait until it's kind of like with the CLCPA, the Climate Act getting rolled out now. People are starting to say, wait a minute, I'm not going to have a gas stove anymore. You know, as people start to understand like what their school budget is going to look like, I think there's going to be tremendous pushback. And I appreciate what you do, and hopefully, you know, wiser minds will prevail. But I'm starting my 7th year in the assembly, and I have not found that to be I'll hand this back over. Yeah, absolutely.
I guess the first thing I would say is, I'll certainly share this concern with Senator Tedesco, who probably already read. Piggyback on what she said, I'd love to have that, slideshow as well, to show to the senator. That's important, but moving away from the topic du jour, the extension of the, waiver to June of 23. Right now, is that unlimited, uncapped? Or is it capped at a higher rate?
It's on the-
Okay, and then.
Making $100,000, you know, they're certainly making more than 35 perhaps, but they're not killing it. So.
Right now,
They got it, so the 35,000 hasn't really moved, but I believe the numbers.
that's correct. Senator Tedesco wants to-
Yes. So if there's any movement of what they got, I thought that is 35, maybe like 50, you know, somewhere, you know, if they want to keep it,
Right.
you know, open access for.
Inflation.
Yeah, yeah.
Bill for that, right now?
This one, oh, she left. Yes, she's gone.
Yeah,
See if anybody has any questions.
The way we're probably right now is a significant amount of people who
And we reached out to a lot of, you know, a lot of us have worked with firehouses and gone out. I mean, I've done my due diligence trying to drag drivers in from anywhere I can. So regardless of where they came from, we do have a good amount of retirees, including a trainer and a potential loss of that particular position. It's, if we don't get this, our staffing is going to be very impacted, especially come year end. Come December, you know, when you know, they're gonna have to start watching their income, you know, we could be in big trouble at the end of the year.
Right, so at this point, that's the best recruitment tool we have.
Yes.
Can I have a comment? So, no matter how from, we're in a lower district, not low or low. I have 13 ones, and this year, the only times that we're going to do that. The rest of my folks have on the second one to do that. Even with the tax breaks and everything, we have nobody coming through my door. Absolutely nobody. It is pure, because my district is lower. We're trying to raise just the salary of the drivers, you know, to get more people. And now we're looking at buying new buses. And my facility is brand new. It's only 3 years old. And I don't have a person to do body work. I don't have a person to change motors. It is horrible in my district. And I'm you know, I'm doing everything I can, like all these folks. I network, I see their ideas, I try them. Nobody comes through the door. And my town don't have the finances to do this. They just don't. I don't know where this is gonna go because I can't even keep my drivers at a higher salary to keep them. And I only have 13. So we need help somewhere. It's desperate. I mean, you can't do all this. They all prices and everything going up. My goodness, my husband is going to get eggs at Thomas's at $2 a dozen so I can give it to my employees because they can't afford the food. It's terrible out there. Low income districts can get up.
See around Albany and such. And that's the issue that we see all across the state, the smaller schools. Just unable to. Now we're looking at the usual costs with, you know, nobody's got that. And I think that's a good message, you know, to get paid because, that's the front of the thing.
and this operation of this district. Yeah, so it's an issue. That reduces the reach. Yep.
Eight or 10 directors, supervisors in the room. And almost all of them, I think there was didn't have a roof over 100 miles. And then make it perfect. Just put the buses home. So I'm not sure we'll deal with that in terms of. Concern was we can't make them away. $15 an hour. And that's a nice little deal. You get to take the bus and drive back and forth to the school. It's, you know, we're not in the house. We force that. I'm pretty sure it's work. A lot of
And one of the main concerns that you guys have all heard this is look their list. I mean, how much of the work is going to be drawn from range every time, you know, let's look at the center of this point. Okay, their buses, you know, and another student. One student was in Nassau and another student was in, on the slow board. And then going into downtown, how much mileage might we make? How much power it take to get up to the hills in Nassau? Because these are the things that go through my mind. Buses that if we're mandated by 2035, what are we going to take? We have to use one bus for wheelchair school, you know, depending on where we're taking them. I mean, look, we have crossroads. I mean, how far is crossroads? You know, everybody knows these districts are. Those are in Massachusetts. You know, another concerns if we all have these. That's, you know, it's over 100 miles. So, you know, we're getting that bus back here. Yeah.
One part of the info for this picture.
Yes, Dave was talking about the fact that most districts in the state are small fleets, and I just was saying that with the smaller fleets, usually the districts are a larger area, and you know that brings the range into inflection. Today, you know, everybody ranges. We all know we don't have perfect conditions here in the state, especially when you start heating bus, which is the approach we've taken with any bus is looking at electric bus, look at Florida's routes and start there. We are supportive, very supportive of the industry of going in this direction. But that's really where we're starting is we want to take the shortest routes, make it as simple as possible to install the infrastructure. You know, put a couple chargers on the wall, like that phone is, before you charge the lot. But you know, the technology, my point was the technology is not there to implement these buses on the majority, I'd say the majority of routes based on the range, the heating, and you know, the length of the depending on which chargers you buy, it could take 8, 10, 12 hours to recharge these batteries. So, you know, that's a good one in the morning, or, you know, 2 hours before the run, the bus hasn't been charging, that helps us down. So, and Dave, you know, both Dave and Alan made some very, very good points. Covered a lot of great ground there, and reliability is what we've heard from our automotive that, you know, pull into a bank of 4 chargers, 1 or 2 is totally down from what we've heard, and that's not a good thing. So there's a lot of challenges for the and then where the mandate is going to be where, you know, You know, so. Get there.
We keep on talking about heat. I have students that cannot be taught in the summer. What is air conditioning? Would that use as much energy as a heater?
No. The air conditioning doesn't use as much, the room. The heat's really good. Okay, for the sake of everybody's time today, and be respectful, because I know we are all probably a little bit worried about the second and what that's gonna feel like for us. We do have a few other things, so, Robin's gonna go around, sell 50 tickets, we can look into this. I also want to make sure everybody is aware of the February 9th virtual meeting. We will have a virtual meeting on February 9th. Al's going to, be presenting on operational challenges for school bus electrification. So we'll get that link out to everybody. Next, if anybody not signed in today, sorry for the top job sign-in sheet today, but our secretary did not make it down to the sign-in sheets. So did anybody? Okay, and I'm personally and for our chapter, I want to thank all of our assemblies and legislators for coming down today and for being here. So before you all discuss the presentation, let's just this Transfinder. Okay, so Transfinder, Dave from Transfinder is here to speak to you about routing software. Thanks for coming, Dave. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Appreciate it, guys. Obviously tough. Here from Transfinder. Folks. Plus, no one's coming in 100 school districts around. The whole, I've been in Transfinder now for years. Unique opportunity to see this throughout the world. Being a local capital region native, I grew up in Scotia, I lived down in Westbrook. It's great for me to be in my hometown. Seeing a lot of the schools that I know. But really today, short and sweet of it, goes with the topics. We talk about how technology is advancing. You know, when I think about when I started here 10 years ago, the difference in how people utilize that technology. And why they utilize it. You know, everybody thinks monsters, they think it's being efficient. When I started, a lot of it was around trying to save money. That's always for folks. I've seen more and more over the years now. Reducing routes, it's about being more efficient. We do see this as a huge shift as we go through it. Now, everybody here in the room mentioned images, things like having to cross the bus, right? How do we make sure that that heat is there? And we start to talk really about the stakeholders. That's the major change that I'm seeing with software. You know, we added about 230 new clients last year throughout the world, and so much of it now is changing. The parents of these kids are changing. I mean, I like to still think of myself as I could just parent. That years now. So we start to look at what people's expectations are, you know. How do you know who's on the bus? Do you know where the kids are? How do you notify people that things have happened? You know, that the mention of the electric bus not being plugged in. How do you notify all the people on that bus that it's another bus picking their kids up and running late? So as we go through this, yes, we talk about routing and we talk about the things that go on with the routing, and that's, you know, our bread and butter. That's where the core of our software is. It almost has been for the last 30 years around routing. But really it comes down to all of the things that go. Sorry about the picture there, but
Oh, sorry.
Really?
Oh, I did it. Sorry. Wait a minute. Nope. What did I do?
Welcome to my neighborhood.
Oh, God, sorry.
So really what we talk about is Transfinder, right? Buffers and people used to do payroll manually, you can still do it manually. It's gotten so complex over the time period. And the needs are so much more when it comes to that. So we start talking about the different ways that we can do it. Really, what that means more than anything is when I used to go on site at 350 stores. I see route, and see my, how they're doing it today, and I see the route sheets, either if they're using the software, they're not. I see route sheets that are all crossed out, because one of the big recommendations that I did for years is around information. There's what the public thinks is happening, there's what the administration thinks is happening, there's what transportation thinks is happening, and then there's what's really happening. And all too often, none of those are really connected. That's what we try to do with this technology, is connect all these things. Because as we go to electric buses, we look at the ranges, we look at the things that go on, this isn't a problem everywhere. The routes the way they always were, isn't. So obviously we talk about technology, we talk about tablets, we talk about turn by turn for substitute drivers, we deal with driver shortages. We talk about the ability to utilize the maps from the routing software. I always think about where I live driving my truck. If I make a wrong turn, what happens? Right? They're being calculated. So what we do with the routing software and the technology that we offer is allow you to edit your maps. You guys are all experts in your areas. You all know areas where buses can't go, where things can't happen. Our app utilizes those maps. So you're going to be able to see it. Again, connecting that with really happening to what people think is happening. We talk about attendance, right? Obviously, as we look at being more efficient, we look at the things that go on, we need to know who's actually driving. You know, I see all the time these routes are the same, and we talk about how routes have been the same for years. With this room, but then we talk about the fact that population is decreased. And it's like, well, how many people are actually riding on those buses? A lot of times what people don't really know. So we try to give you those tools. On top of that, so much of what y'all do is communication. Nobody knows it better than the people that are driving the buses every day. So how can we get them communicate? If we have trouble communicating internally at our company, you know, so when we talk about those tablets, and we talk about apps, we create a form finder solution, right? So it's all forms. And the idea with these forms are they're not static. So if a driver has an issue, a driver sees something, they can fill out a form on the tablet, on the phone, anytime, comes back in, and it will actually fill things in the routing software to allow them to communicate and then query it and do that. So again, it's connecting what actually happens all the way through to you folks, so we can do the best possible. From there, we talk about, again, inspect what you expect. So understanding exactly what's going on so that when you're making those decisions, you're making them based on the best data out there. And going to the stakeholders and talking about the stakeholders, like I said before, you know, when we talk about the average age of a parent, we talk about how they get their information. And if I had $1 for every board meeting I was at where a board member asked me, well, why is it I can buy something on Amazon and 20 minutes later, you don't know who my kid is? That's a question. It goes to also about budgets. Amazon pays tens of millions of dollars a year for that software. What are you going to bear? But what I found more than anything with all these technologies goes to what you said, the stakeholders, right? The voters, the people that are doing it. All these things being connected and being able to provide more service to your public, more information, can sometimes help with understanding why you need the things you do. And really, that goes back to what I said. Now, we talk about how at Transfinder, you know, we try to do it all, like safe routes. Funny, I had a person point out to me, well, this looks incomplete, right? There's a big space missing. And the reason for that is that space is usable. This is just a tool, not an integral part in all of these things, right? The same thing as a tool in your mechanic shop, very powerful. It takes the right person to use it. So we think technology is going to be a big part going forward. Guys, it's great to meet you all. I haven't met a lot of you. If you ever need anything, and you know, I look forward to now with New York being one of my states and being a home state, you'll probably see them more. But if you have any questions or you need anything additional, I don't know. Reach out, okay? Thank you. So. Got it? There you go. Well, thank you, Dave. You're welcome. Okay, so we have $75.
No, thank you.
50/50 today. It's 80.
Yeah, right.
Oh, here. No, there's nothing here. No, I got- is it something?
Yeah.
Sorry.
155. So if you-
$250.
Did I give somebody $5? And once? So what is it, $750?
For God's sake.
Oh, really? Come on.
Look at the TV. No, I got it. Say I'll pay you $80 so I can see you to get it back. So I'll pick today because these, as, which are done inside very finished. Oh,
Okay.
okay. Okay.
Oh, there's two there.
Oh,
Break it up.
huh?
Yeah, come on.
All right, hold on.
Who's doing this?
We're gonna do it again. All right.
Okay, number 855 146. So if you have not signed up for the winter workshop yet for NIAP, that will be at the you've been definitely sending out emails. Reminding everybody, get your, I don't know, I mean, this is what we staying, but obviously, you know, it's been saying there's a backup hotel rooms, so get your reservations in. Sign up for winter workshop, the agenda looks really, really good. I suggest, you know, that you all attend that, and we will, send out the link for February 9th. For my presentation, and I'll see you guys all in February. Thank you.